Some ancient inventions remain completely impossible to replicate today. Our modern world, with all its supercomputers and advanced engineering, still cannot reproduce the self-healing concrete of Rome or the astronomical calculators of ancient Greece. By the end of this, you will know 21 specific marvels that defy everything we assume about technological progress. How did civilizations without electricity create steel stronger than anything we can forge? And what secret knowledge was lost that we are still searching for? What does it truly mean to be an advanced society? These ancient innovators worked without blueprints, without computer models, and often without any written records that have survived the ages. They were not just building structures, they were encoding complex principles of the universe into stone and metal. Think about the sheer geographical spread of these mysteries, from the sun-drenched plains of Egypt to the rugged highlands of Peru, and from the bustling ports of the Roman Empire to the secluded valleys of China. Each of these cultures, operating in complete isolation from one another, somehow arrived at similar, staggering levels of technological sophistication. They were all tapping into a deep, fundamental understanding of the world, a kind of raw, intuitive science that we, for all our data and devices, seem to have misplaced. How could societies separated by vast oceans and impassable mountain ranges independently develop such precise astronomical calendars or such resilient construction methods? It suggests that there are universal truths about materials and mathematics that these cultures discovered, truths that modern engineering is only now beginning to rediscover with the help of powerful microscopes and satellites. This is not merely about lost tools, it is about lost ways of seeing the world itself. Our first stop takes us to the bottom of the sea. In the year 1901, sponge divers exploring a Roman shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon a lump of corroded bronze and wood. At first glance, it seemed like just another piece of junk, crusted over by 2,000 years underwater. But when it was carefully cleaned, researchers saw something that should not have been there. It was a complex clockwork device, a bewildering assembly of gears within a wooden case, all built around 100 years before the Common Era. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, and it would shatter our understanding of ancient technology. It was not a simple calendar or a navigational aid. It was, by every modern definition, an analog computer. The device contained over 30 interlocking bronze gears, each meticulously cut by hand. By turning a hand crank on the side, the user could make these gears spin in perfect harmony to model the cosmos. It could predict the positions of the sun and moon, forecast lunar and solar eclipses, and even track the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. It was a portable, mechanical universe. For decades, the mechanism's true complexity remained locked inside its calcified shell. It was only with the advent of advanced 3-dimensional X-ray technology that we could peer inside without destroying it. What scientists found was breathtaking. The gear trains were not just simple arrangements. They used a sophisticated concept called differential gearing, which allows 2 different speeds to be calculated and reconciled within a single system. This level of mechanical engineering was thought to have been invented during the European Renaissance, some 1600 years later. How did a civilization without industrial tools, without precision lathes, create something so perfectly intricate? We can understand its principles on paper, and we can even build replicas using modern computer-controlled machining. But no one has been able to recreate the Antikythera mechanism using only the tools, materials, and knowledge that would have been available in the 1st century before the Common Era. That is the heart of the mystery. This one device forces us to ask what other brilliant minds were at work in the ancient world and what their full capabilities truly were. From a machine that mapped the heavens, we descend to a material that defies the earth itself. The Roman Pantheon's dome has loomed over the city for nearly 2,000 years, a perfect hemisphere of concrete that has never needed repair. Modern concrete, by stark contrast, often shows signs of decay within 50 years, crumbling under the very elements this ancient structure has effortlessly endured. The secret is not just in the recipe, but in a chemical process so advanced it seems almost alive. Roman engineers mixed lime, volcanic ash, and small fragments of rock, but their masterstroke was the addition of seawater. This combination triggers a remarkable reaction. When tiny cracks form from centuries of stress, water seeps in. This water reacts with the volcanic ash and lime, forming a rare plate-like crystal called a luminous tobermorite. These crystals expand, filling the crack completely and bonding it shut. The concrete does not just resist damage, it actively heals itself, becoming stronger with each passing century. Modern scientists have analyzed samples with electron microscopes, understanding the chemistry in exquisite detail, yet every attempt to recreate it falls short. Our modern concrete relies on Portland cement, a process that requires extremely high temperatures and releases vast amounts of carbon dioxide. The Roman method was cooler, used local, natural materials, and created a product that was infinitely more sustainable and durable. We have the formula, but we cannot reproduce the result. The specific conditions and the precise sequence of chemical events that lead to the formation of those self-healing crystals remain just out of reach. This is not a failure of knowledge, but of process. The ancient Romans built for eternity, and their concrete suggests they knew something about working in harmony with natural forces that we are still struggling to learn. From a material that rebuilds itself, we turn to a metal that was once unbreakable. The legendary swords of Damascus were not mere weapons, they were masterpieces of metallurgy, forged between the 3rd and 17th centuries in the Middle East. A warrior wielding one of these blades held an advantage that seemed almost supernatural. The steel was impossibly strong, yet it could bend without snapping. It held an edge so sharp it was said to slice through a silk scarf floating in the air, or even cleave another sword in two. Its surface was etched with flowing, watery patterns, a mesmerizing signature of its unique internal structure. For centuries, the method to create this steel was a closely guarded secret, passed down through generations of smiths until the knowledge vanished entirely. Modern science has since torn apart these ancient blades, analyzing them with electron microscopes in a quest to understand their power. What they found was astonishing. Embedded within the steel are carbon nanotubes, microscopic structures that we consider a modern nanotechnology marvel. These tubes are incredibly strong and are thought to be the key to the blade's legendary flexibility and sharpness. Knowing this ingredient, however, has not unlocked the recipe. Contemporary metallurgists have tried everything. They have experimented with different ores from around the world, attempted countless folding and hammering techniques, and even tried to introduce modern materials. The result is always the same, a blade that may look the part with its wavy pattern, but one that fails to perform. It might be hard but brittle, or flexible but dull. No modern recreation has ever achieved that perfect, seemingly impossible trifecta of razor-sharp hardness, spring-like flexibility, and incredible durability. The secret was not just in the materials, but in the entire process, a specific sequence of heating, hammering, and cooling that transformed ordinary elements into an extraordinary alloy. It is a stark reminder that some forms of genius are not just about what you know, but about how you bring that knowledge to life with your hands. While Damascus Steel gave warriors an unbreakable blade, another ancient invention created an unquenchable flame. Greek fire was the Byzantine Empire's ultimate naval weapon, a liquid inferno that could set the very sea on fire. From the 7th century onward, this terrifying substance was the key to defending Constantinople against invading fleets. Historical accounts describe it being hurled from bronze tubes mounted on the prows of Byzantine warships, erupting in a continuous jet of fire that clung to wooden hulls and sails. Most terrifying of all, water could not put it out. In fact, it seemed to ignite even more violently upon contact with the waves, creating a blazing moat around any ship it touched. The psychological impact was as devastating as the physical damage. Enemy sailors watched in horror as their attempts to douse the flames only made them spread, trapping them in an inescapable furnace. The formula was such a closely guarded state secret that its components were known only to a select few, possibly even the emperor and a single family of chemists. This secrecy was so effective that when the empire finally fell, the knowledge vanished without a trace. We are left with fragments of descriptions, clues that point to a complex chemical cocktail. Historians and chemists have theorized it might have been a crude form of napalm, a mixture of petroleum or naphtha combined with other ingredients like quicklime, which generates intense heat when it reacts with water, or pine resin to make it sticky. Modern laboratories have tried to reverse engineer it based on these clues. They have created substances that burn, even ones that are difficult to extinguish. But none have replicated the two most defining characteristics described in the ancient texts. No modern replica can be projected through a siphon in a steady, controllable stream while still igniting on contact with water. Our versions are either too unstable to pump safely, or they are extinguished by the very element that was supposed to fuel them. This was not a simple torch. It was a sophisticated piece of chemical engineering, a weapon whose precise balance of ingredients and delivery system remains a puzzle that our advanced chemistry cannot solve. The loss of Greek fire represents more than a forgotten recipe. It is the disappearance of an entire branch of applied science that gave a civilization control over the elements themselves. From a weapon of liquid fire, we journey to a silent, circular mystery. Unearthed on the Greek island of Crete in 1908, the Phaistos disk is a simple object of baked clay, small enough to hold in your hands. Yet this unassuming artifact has resisted all understanding for over a century. Its surface is covered with 45 unique symbols, each one stamped in a precise spiral pattern curling from the edge to the center on both sides. We see human figures and animals, plants and tools, all arranged in what appears to be a deliberate sequence, a message frozen in time from the Minoan civilization of the second millennium before the Common Era. This is the only object of its kind ever found. No other examples of this script exist, making it an isolated enigma with no key to unlock its code. Is it a hymn to a forgotten god, a king's proclamation, or perhaps an ancient farmer's almanac? Every theory remains just a guess. The mystery deepens when you look closer at the symbols themselves. They are not carved or scratched into the clay. Each one was pressed in with a seal, like a stamp, creating perfectly clean and consistent impressions. This suggests the Minoans possessed a set of 45 individual punches, a primitive form of movable type for printing. This technology was not seen again for another 3,000 years. With the invention of the printing press in Europe, modern craftsmen have tried to recreate the disc using tools and materials available at the time. They have carved stamps from wood and bone and attempted to press them into wet clay. The results are always messy, the impressions are blurry, the lines uneven. No one has been able to achieve the crisp, flawless clarity of the original symbols. This failure points to a lost manufacturing technique, a specific way of preparing the clay or a unique alloy for the stamps that we have not yet discovered. The Phaistos disc is a double-locked box. We cannot read its words and we cannot replicate its creation. It stands as a silent challenge, a reminder that an entire system of communication and production can vanish from the world, leaving behind only a single, perfect, and utterly baffling clue. This same mastery of natural forces guided sailors across vast, empty oceans. While the Minoans left behind a disk we cannot read, the Norse navigators used a crystal to read the sky itself. Viking sagas speak of a magical sunstone, a clear gem that could reveal the sun's location on a completely overcast day, or even after it had dipped below the horizon. In the featureless expanse of the North Atlantic, where the sky and sea merge into a uniform gray, this was the difference between finding new lands and vanishing forever. It was this tool, more than their iconic longships, that enabled their legendary voyages to Iceland, Greenland, and eventually the coast of North America. For centuries, historians dismissed the Sunstone as mere myth, a poetic metaphor for skill or luck. Then, science caught up with the saga. Researchers identified a prime candidate for this legendary stone, a transparent crystal known as Iceland spar, a form of calcite. Hold a piece of this crystal up to the sky and look through it. A remarkable thing happens. Due to a property called birefringence, the crystal splits light into two separate beams. The sky's light is polarized, meaning its light waves vibrate in a specific direction that shifts based on the sun's position, even when the sun itself is hidden. By rotating an Iceland spar crystal and observing the changing intensity of these two beams of light, a skilled user can pinpoint the sun's location with an accuracy of within a single degree. We understand the physics perfectly. In a laboratory with controlled lighting and precise instruments, we can demonstrate the principle without a doubt. The mystery that remains is not one of science but of application. How did a Viking navigator standing on the deck of a rocking longship in a foggy twilight actually use this stone? The sagas do not provide a step-by-step manual. We have the key, but we have lost the lock. Modern experiments show that the technique requires immense practice and a keen, almost intuitive eye for subtle changes in light that our modern senses, dulled by reliance on digital screens and GPS, struggle to perceive. Recreating the Vikings' transatlantic journey is not just about building a ship or finding the right crystal. It is about rediscovering a lost human skill, a way of seeing the world that turned a simple piece of rock into a celestial compass. This was not magic, it was a profound understanding of light itself, an understanding we can only partially reclaim. That same profound understanding of natural forces was applied on a scale so grand it still defies belief. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as a silent monument to a precision that borders on the impossible. Built around 2,560 years before the Common Era, its construction details are a catalogue of engineering marvels that modern projects struggle to match even with laser levels and computer-aided design. Consider its foundation, a 13-acre stone platform carved directly from the desert bedrock. Across this vast area, the base is leveled to within less than 1 inch. Think about that for a moment. Over a space larger than 10 football fields, the ancient builders achieved a flatness that would challenge a contemporary construction crew with their most advanced equipment. Then there is its orientation. The 4 sides of the pyramid are aligned almost perfectly to the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with an error margin of just 1/15 of a single degree. This is not just roughly facing north. This is a precision that implies a sophisticated and lost understanding of astronomy. But the true shock comes when you look at the materials themselves. The pyramid is built from millions of limestone blocks with interior chambers made of gigantic granite slabs. Some of these stones weigh up to 80 tons, the equivalent of a full-grown humpback whale. How were these behemoths quarried, transported, and then lifted into place? Even more baffling is how they were fitted together. The joints between these colossal blocks are so incredibly tight that you cannot slip a credit card between them. This is not just skilled masonry. This is a level of craftsmanship that seems to belong to a different age. Modern engineers and archaeologists have tried to replicate these feats using only the tools the Egyptians are believed to have possessed: copper chisels, stone hammers, and wooden sledges. The results are consistently humbling. The blocks they cut are uneven, their alignments are off by several degrees, and the joints are gaping. We simply cannot achieve that razor-sharp perfection with the primitive methods we attribute to them. This gap between our theories and their reality suggests that the builders of the pyramids possessed a secret, a methodology for working with stone that we have not yet rediscovered. Was it a lost type of tool, or perhaps a forgotten chemical process that could soften stone for easier shaping? The pyramid does not give up its secrets. It simply stands, a perfect geometric form in the desert, challenging everything we assume about the capabilities of the ancient world. That same quest for precision on a grand scale appears again, not in stone, but in the very skin of the desert. Scratched into the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nazca lines form a sprawling gallery of geological art. Created by the Nazca people over a 1,000-year period, these are not small carvings. They are immense geoglyphs, some stretching over 1,200 feet long, depicting a hummingbird, a spider, a monkey, and complex geometric shapes that sprawl across the landscape. The sheer scale is disorienting. You could lay the Empire State Building down next to one of these figures, and it would be completely dwarfed. But the true mystery is not their size, it is the perspective from which they were made. The creators of these lines could never see their own work. From ground level, the shapes are just a confusing network of shallow trenches and displaced stones. The full, breathtaking image only reveals itself from hundreds of feet in the air. So how did a culture without flight, without hot air balloons or any form of aerial surveillance, design and execute art that was meant for the eyes of the gods? Modern experiments have tried to answer this by having teams on the ground recreate a simple, large-scale design using only presumed ancient techniques. The results are almost always distorted. Maintaining a straight line across a mile of uneven terrain is incredibly difficult. Keeping the proportions of a complex animal figure perfect when you are standing inside one of its lines is nearly impossible. Your sense of scale gets lost, curves become wobbled, and straight lines begin to drift. The Nazca people, however, did not drift. Their lines are staggeringly straight, and their curves are fluid and exact. Archaeologists theorize they may have used a system of stakes and ropes to plot out small sections at a time, scaling up a master design. But the exact method for this scaling, the mathematical principles that allowed them to transfer a small model into a perfect giant replica without a single misstep, remains one of history's greatest puzzles. This was more than art. It was a form of land surveying so advanced that it allowed humans to draw with the earth itself, creating messages so vast they could only be fully understood from the heavens. From the vast desert canvases of the Nazca, we move to a small, unassuming clay jar that could rewrite the history of technology. Unearthed near Baghdad in the 1930s, this simple pot from the Parthian or Sasanian era, around 2,000 years ago, contains a secret that seems to defy its time. Inside the terracotta vessel sits a copper cylinder, and within that, an iron rod, all sealed with an asphalt plug. To a modern eye, it looks unmistakably like a primitive battery. When filled with an acidic liquid, something as common as vinegar or grape juice, the chemical reaction between the iron and copper in the acidic electrolyte generates a small electrical charge. Laboratory recreations have confirmed it. These jars can produce a consistent voltage of about 1 volt. That is enough power to create a faint tingle on the tongue, or, more significantly, to electroplate a small object with a thin layer of gold or silver. This is where the true mystery ignites. We understand the science perfectly. It is a basic galvanic cell. The profound question is, what was it for? Did ancient artisans use arrays of these pots to gild jewelry, applying a shimmering finish without the need for fire? Were they employed in some form of ancient electrotherapy, a notion that seems to leap centuries ahead of its time? Or was their purpose something else entirely, something we have not even considered? The frustrating truth is that no written records or accompanying artifacts definitively tell us how these batteries were used. We have the device, but we have lost its instruction manual. This single, humble jar challenges the entire conventional timeline of electrical discovery. It suggests that the fundamental principles of electrochemistry were not born in the laboratories of 18th century Europe, but were being tinkered with and perhaps even applied in workshops 2 millennia ago. The Baghdad Battery is a quiet, potent reminder that our understanding of the past is often just a story we tell ourselves, a story that can be completely overturned by a piece of clay, some metal, and a forgotten idea. Buried in the river deltas of Costa Rica, another stone puzzle waits. Scattered across the landscape are hundreds of granite spheres, some small enough to hold in your hands, others so massive they dwarf the people standing beside them. Created by the Dikwis culture over a 1,000-year period, these spheres are not just vaguely round rocks. They are monuments to geometric perfection, carved from one of the hardest stones on Earth with a precision that seems to defy their primitive tools. The largest of them weigh as much as 2 full-grown elephants, a staggering 16 tons of solid stone. Yet despite their immense mass, their shape is nearly flawless. Modern laser scans reveal that the surface of these giant spheres varies from a true sphere by less than the thickness of a fingernail. How did a society without metal tools, without precision instruments, achieve such perfection on such a colossal scale? The rock they used, gabbro, is brutally hard, a coarse-grained stone that would have shattered under the clumsy strike of a hammer. Archaeologists believe the Dikwis people must have used a combination of heating with fire and rapid cooling with water to fracture the raw stone, then painstakingly pecked and ground it into shape using other, smaller rocks. But when modern craftsmen try this method, the results are telling. They can create a ball, yes, but it is always lumpy and uneven. The process is agonizingly slow, and achieving that final, mirror-smooth curvature with nothing but stone hammers and abrasives seems almost impossible. The spheres from Costa Rica present a quiet, physical contradiction. They are there, they are real, and they are perfect. Yet our best attempts to walk in the footsteps of their creators consistently fall short, leaving us with rough imitations that only highlight the gap between our understanding and their lost skill. This was not a matter of brute force, but of a refined, tactile knowledge of stone, a secret technique for feeling and correcting imperfection that has been completely lost to time. High in the Andes, the stones themselves seem to defy gravity. The walls of Sacsayhuaman and Machu Picchu are not built, they are woven, each granite block a uniquely shaped piece in a colossal, three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. These are dry stone walls, assembled without a single drop of mortar to bind them. Yet the seams between these massive, irregular stones are so impossibly tight that you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. These stones, some weighing over 100 tons, are locked together by pure geometry, a testament to a construction method that modern engineering still cannot decipher. This is Inca ashlar masonry, and its true genius is revealed not in stillness but in chaos. Peru is one of the most seismically active regions on Earth, rocked by frequent and violent earthquakes. When these tremors strike, the Spanish colonial buildings, constructed with conventional mortar and square blocks, crack and crumble, but the ancient Inca walls simply dance. During an earthquake, the precisely fitted stones in an Inca wall shift and sway, absorbing and dissipating the incredible energy of the tremor. Then, when the shaking stops, they settle back into their original, locked positions. They are not rigid, they are resilient, acting like a single, flexible entity. Modern engineers understand the principle of seismic damping, but they cannot replicate the Inca result. Teams of stonemasons and archaeologists have tried. They have attempted to copy the method by creating cardboard templates for each stone, or by using a process called trial and error, where a stone is repeatedly placed, marked, and chiseled away. The process is agonizingly slow, taking weeks for a single stone, and the final joints are always visibly coarser. The gaps, while small, are there. Our recreations lack the same perfect, interlocking friction. The mystery is not just in the final fit, but in the entire process. How did the Inca craftsmen, without iron tools or the wheel, measure and shape these behemoths with such flawless accuracy? Did they use a now-lost slurry or plant-based substance that could temporarily soften the hard granite, allowing them to mold it like clay? Or was their skill so profound, their understanding of stone so intimate, that they could see the final shape hidden within the raw rock and know exactly how to unlock it? The walls stand silent, a perfect marriage of art and engineering that has protected its secrets for 500 years. High in the Andes, the stones themselves shift and settle, a testament to ancient engineering that understood the Earth's tremors. Far to the east, another civilization created a device not to withstand those tremors, but to sense their distant approach. In the year 132 of the Common Era, the Chinese astronomer and inventor Zhang Heng unveiled a bronze masterpiece that seemed to possess a kind of supernatural hearing. His earthquake detector, a beautifully ornate vessel, stood as a silent sentinel in the capital, capable of feeling a quake that no human could perceive. Imagine the awe of the court when, one day, a bronze ball clattered from a dragon's mouth into the grasp of a waiting bronze frog, signaling a tremor to the west. Days later, messengers arrived from a region hundreds of miles away, confirming a devastating earthquake had struck at that very moment. The device had not just felt the quake, it had pointed directly toward it. The design was as elegant as it was mysterious. 8 dragon heads adorned the outside of the vessel, each holding a heavy bronze ball in its jaws. Below each dragon sat a corresponding bronze frog with its mouth wide open. The historical records tell us that when an earthquake occurred, a mechanism inside the vessel would trigger just one dragon to release its ball, which would fall with a loud clang into the frog's mouth, clearly indicating the direction of the distant epicenter. The true genius and the enduring mystery lies in what was inside that bronze jar. Modern scientists and historians have tried to reconstruct it based on the brief, tantalizing descriptions that survived. The prevailing theory is that a heavy pendulum was suspended freely in the center of the vessel. When seismic waves, specifically the long, slow P waves that travel farthest, arrived from a distant quake, they would set the pendulum swinging. It would then strike a lever mechanism connected to one of the 8 dragon heads, tripping the release for that specific direction. But here is where every modern reconstruction fails. How did this device distinguish the faint, steady rhythm of a quake hundreds of miles away from the constant, jarring vibrations of a bustling city just outside its walls? A simple pendulum would react to everything from a passing cart to a marching regiment, rendering it useless with false alarms. Zhang Heng's device, however, was renowned for its accuracy and its silence until a true earthquake struck. This suggests his internal mechanism was a masterpiece of mechanical filtration, perhaps using a series of counterweights or a sophisticated gearing system that only engaged after the pendulum had built up a specific, sustained momentum. Our modern replicas can detect direction, but they lack the legendary sensitivity and the crucial ability to ignore local noise. We have seismographs that are infinitely more precise, but they are complex electronic networks. Zhang Heng achieved a similar result with a single, self-contained instrument of beautiful simplicity. His invention reveals an intuitive grasp of seismic wave propagation that would not be formally understood in Europe for another 1,500 years. We can see what it did, but the subtle, lost physics that made it work so reliably remains just beyond our reach, a silent secret locked inside a bronze urn. While Zhang Heng's device listened for tremors in the earth, a different kind of power was being harnessed in ancient Alexandria. A hissing sphere of bronze, spinning with the force of escaping steam, marked the birth of a technology that would lie dormant for 17 centuries. This was the Aeolipile, or hero's engine, a device so ahead of its time it feels like an artifact from a different timeline. In the 1st century of the Common Era, the inventor-hero described a simple yet brilliant apparatus. A sealed water vessel was placed over a fire. 2 pipes channeled the resulting steam into a hollow bronze sphere, which was mounted on a pair of hollow tubes that acted as its axles. As the steam rushed out of 2 angled nozzles on opposite sides of the sphere, the reactive force, much like a rocket's thrust, sent the sphere whirling at high speed. It was a working steam turbine, a clear demonstration of jet propulsion and the power of steam, all created not as a practical machine, but as a fascinating temple wonder or a philosophical toy. We understand the physics perfectly today. It is a straightforward illustration of Newton's third law: for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Modern hobbyists can and do build working replicas using simple materials. The profound mystery is not whether it worked, but why it led nowhere. Ancient Greece had all the necessary components for an industrial revolution. They had metalworking, they understood basic principles of pressure, and they had this working model of a steam engine. Yet the Aeolipile remained a curiosity, a clever demonstration never scaled up to pump water or turn a millstone. The challenge for modern historians and engineers is not in replicating the principle, but in recreating it with the technological constraints of its time. To build a functional, durable Aeolipile using only the tools and materials of 1st century Alexandria is surprisingly difficult. The rotating joints where the sphere meets its axles must be perfectly fitted to contain the steam pressure without seizing up from heat expansion or leaking excessively. This requires a level of precision metalworking in bronze that was exceptionally advanced for the era. Did Hero and his contemporaries possess a secret, lost technique for machining metal to such fine tolerances? Or was this device the pinnacle of a technological branch that simply had no room to grow in a society built on slave labor? The Aeolipile stands as a haunting what-if. It is a clear, tangible spark of potential that never found the tinder to become a flame, forcing us to wonder how different our world might be if this ancient genius had been applied not just to wonder, but to work. The hissing steam of Hero's engine fades, and we travel across the ocean to a world where time itself was carved into stone. Deep in the Central American rainforest, the ancient Maya built an empire of the mind, one whose greatest monuments were not pyramids alone, but the breathtakingly precise celestial cycles they encoded. Without a single lens or telescope, Mayan astronomers mapped the heavens with an accuracy that challenges our own computerized calculations. Their long count calendar could track time over millions of years, but it is their shorter cycles that truly stun modern scientists. They calculated the solar year to be 365.2420 days. Our modern measurement, using atomic clocks and satellite data, is 365.2422. The difference is vanishingly small, just minutes over a year. They achieved a similar feat with the orbit of Venus, pinning its 584-day cycle with an error of just 1 day in 5,000 years. How could a civilization using only the naked eye, crossed sticks for sighting, and a base 20 numerical system see so far and so clearly? The challenge of replicating this is not about building a device, but about rebuilding a human skill that has been utterly lost. Modern astronomers have tried to use only the tools the Maya had. They have stood at the tops of pyramids, using notched sticks to track the slow crawl of a star across the sky. The results are humbling. The human eye waters and tires, the horizon shimmers with heat haze, and the mind struggles to maintain the rigorous consistency needed over a lifetime of observations. One tiny misjudgment, one hazy night, and the entire chain of data is corrupted. The Maya did not just observe, they observed with a generational discipline, passing down data for centuries until the patterns emerged from the noise. Their number system, with its concept of zero, allowed them to perform complex calculations that Europe would not grasp for another 1,000 years. But the numbers alone are not the full secret. It was their unique fusion of mathematics, relentless observation, and a worldview that saw the cosmos as a living, breathing entity of precise cycles. They were not just calculating dates, they were conversing with the gods of time. And in that sacred conversation, they discovered a rhythm to the universe so exact that we can only stand in awe of the minds that heard it. While the Maya were charting celestial cycles, another civilization was performing a different kind of alchemy, one that turned a common metal into a timeless monument. The Iron Pillar of Delhi rises 23 feet into the sky, a solid shaft of wrought iron forged around the year 400 of the Common Era. It has stood in the same spot for over 1,600 years, exposed to scorching sun, torrential monsoon rains, and the pollution of a modern megacity. And yet, it shows no significant signs of rust. This is not just a little bit of corrosion resistance. This is a complete defiance of the natural law that governs every other piece of iron on Earth. We know exactly why it does not rust, but that knowledge has not brought us any closer to replicating its perfection. Modern scientists have taken minuscule samples and analyzed them with the most powerful electron microscopes. They discovered the pillar's secret is a thin, invisible blanket, a protective film just 1/20th the thickness of a human hair. This layer is a crystalline compound called mesowite, a special mix of iron, oxygen, and hydrogen that forms an impenetrable shield. It does not just sit on the surface, it bonds with the iron beneath, creating a barrier that actively prevents oxygen and moisture from triggering the destructive process of corrosion. The mystery is not the what but the how. How did ancient Indian blacksmiths, working with a simple forge, bellows, and hammers, create the exact conditions needed for this miracle layer to form? The prevailing theory is that it was a happy accident of their unique forging process. They likely used high phosphorus iron ore and a particular method of hammering the hot metal, which incorporated slag and other impurities from the forge directly into the iron. This imperfect, almost messy process, so different from our clean, industrial steel production, seems to have been the key. The phosphorus content reacted with the iron and the environment over time, slowly growing that perfect protective skin. Modern metallurgists have tried everything to copy it. They have experimented with high phosphorus ores, they have tried different hammering techniques, and they have even attempted to artificially create the mesowite layer in a lab. They can create a version of it, yes, but it is never as uniform, as adherent, or as durable as the one on the ancient pillar. Our modern steel, designed for purity and strength, lacks the very impurities that made the pillar immortal. This creates a profound paradox. Our advanced science can tell us the pillar's atomic structure, but our advanced industry cannot reproduce the artisanal, almost intuitive method that created it. The iron pillar is not just a metal column, it is a testament to a different philosophy of working with materials, one that embraced complexity and imperfection to achieve a result that our quest for perfect control has so far failed to match. The very same hands that carved the pyramids also mastered the art of moving mountains. Across the deserts of Egypt stand the obelisks, single pieces of stone reaching for the sky, some weighing as much as 500 tons. That is the equivalent of 100 adult elephants, all carved from a single block of granite. The greatest evidence of their audacious skill lies not in a finished monument, but in a colossal failure. In the quarries of Aswan, the unfinished obelisk remains, still attached to the bedrock. It was intended to be a true giant, 1,200 tons of stone, but a crack appeared during its carving, forcing the workers to abandon it. This abandoned project is more revealing than any success. The quarry floor shows the precise methods they used. They did not smash the rock with hammers. Instead, workers carved deep channels in the granite, then drove wooden wedges into them. These wedges were soaked with water. As the wood expanded with a force greater than any hammer blow, it cleanly cracked the granite along a perfect, predetermined line. This technique seems straightforward in theory, but the scale at Aswan is almost unbelievable. The channels are deep enough for a person to stand in, tracing the outline of a stone taller than a 10-story building. Modern engineers have tried to replicate this on a smaller scale, and the results are humbling. Controlling the fracture of such a vast block of granite is incredibly difficult. A slight imperfection in the channel, a weakness in the stone, or an uneven expansion of the wedges can cause the entire monolith to shatter, wasting years of labor. The Egyptians did this not just once but repeatedly with near-perfect success. Then came the greater challenge, moving this 500-ton needle of stone. The conventional idea is that they used massive wooden sledges, dragging the obelisk over lubricated pathways, but recent experiments have shown the limits of this theory. Even with hundreds of workers pulling on ropes, a sledge carrying a much smaller replica simply digs itself into the sand. The friction is too immense. This has led to new, fascinating theories. Perhaps they placed the obelisk on a wooden cradle that acted like a giant rocking beam, literally walking it forward step by step across the desert. Or maybe they used a system of barges and canals during the Nile's annual flood, floating the stone for hundreds of miles. We simply do not know for certain. The final act, raising the obelisk to stand upright, seems like the most impossible feat of all. One theory suggests they built a giant ramp of sand, slowly dragging the stone up an incline until it could be pivoted over a stone pit and lowered into place. The margin for error is zero. A single slip, a rope fraying under the unimaginable strain, and the obelisk would be shattered, and the workers lost. Every step, from the first tap of a stone hammer in Aswan to the final, breathless moment when the obelisk stood vertical, was a calculated risk on a scale we can scarcely comprehend. These were not just construction projects, They were acts of supreme confidence in a system of engineering so refined that its most crucial secrets died with its master builders. While the Egyptians were moving mountains of stone, another civilization was mastering a far more elusive element in the harshest of environments. In the heart of the scorching Persian desert, where summer temperatures could melt ambition itself, people were harvesting ice. The Yakchul, or ice pit, was a domed structure rising from the arid plains, a sanctuary of cold built over 2,000 years ago. Its design was a masterpiece of passive thermodynamics, a clever manipulation of natural forces that required no electricity, only intelligence. The dome itself was built from a special mortar called sarouj, a mix of sand, clay, egg whites, lime, and goat hair that was not just strong, but remarkably resistant to heat transfer. This thick, insulating shell protected the vast underground storage chamber beneath it, but the real genius was in how they filled that chamber with ice. Ingenious subterranean water channels, known as kanats, brought water from nearby mountains to the site. This water was then directed into shallow, shaded pools where it was exposed to the cold desert nights. The dry, still air and the clear skies allowed for intense radiative cooling, where heat escaped directly from the water into the atmosphere. This process could freeze the water even when the air temperature was slightly above freezing. The Yakchul's wind catchers, tall, chimney-like towers, then came into play, funneling any passing breeze down into the structure. As this air descended and passed over the ice or the nearby water channels, it was cooled further by evaporation, creating a continuous cycle of cold air that settled in the storage pit. The result was a deep freeze vault that could preserve ice and even food throughout the blistering summer months. Modern architects and engineers, armed with a complete understanding of fluid dynamics and heat transfer, have tried to recreate this elegant system. They build similar-looking domes and install modern versions of wind catchers, yet these replicas consistently fail to achieve the same dramatic temperature drops or the long-term storage capability. The subtle, perfect balance of the original is lost. The precise angle of the wind catchers, the exact composition and thickness of the sarouj mortar, and the specific depth and shape of the underground chamber all worked in a harmony that we have not yet been able to recapture. The Yakchul was not a machine, it was a living part of the desert ecosystem, a testament to a time when humanity did not fight nature with brute force, but listened to its rhythms and built in concert with them. The same hands that forged Delhi's Rustless pillar were part of a much older tradition, one that turned ritual vessels into metallurgical symphonies. Ancient Chinese bronze casters from the Shang and Zhou dynasties did not merely make art, they composed it in an alloy of copper, tin, and lead, creating ceremonial vessels whose secrets are locked within their molecular structure. Modern laboratories can identify every element present, but they cannot reproduce the result. The precise ratios of these metals, a recipe that seems to have varied for every single piece, gave the bronzes a constellation of impossible qualities. They possess a unique, resonant ring when struck, a specific tone for ritual communication. They display a corrosion resistance that has preserved their intricate surface details for over 3,000 years. And they feature a sharpness of design with intricate tauti masks and dragon patterns, so crisp it suggests the molten metal flowed like water into the finest seams of their ceramic molds. Today's metallurgists, armed with spectral analyzers and electric furnaces, have tried to go back to the beginning. They have built replica furnaces based on archaeological finds, using clay molds and charcoal fires. They have experimented with different ore sources, trying to mimic the ancient recipes. The bronzes they produce are beautiful, but they are fundamentally wrong. The metal is often porous, filled with tiny bubbles that weaken the structure and dull the acoustic ring. The surface details are soft, lacking the knife-edge clarity of the originals. The corrosion resistance is non-existent, the modern metal beginning to degrade after just a few years of exposure. It seems the ancient masters possessed a tacit knowledge that has left no written record. They understood not just the recipe but the entire choreography of the process, the exact temperature of the molten metal, judged by the color of the flame and the smell of the smoke. The specific way to preheat the ceramic mold to prevent thermal shock, the perfect speed to pour the alloy to ensure it filled every crevice without cooling too quickly. This was a science of the senses, a deep, intuitive partnership between the artisan and the elements. We have the chemical formula, but we have lost the art of the performance itself. These silent bronze vessels are more than artifacts. They are the physical evidence of a school of knowledge that graduated its last master millennia ago, leaving behind perfect examples of a craft we can analyze but cannot revive. That same intuitive mastery of raw materials emerged in the cold northern forests of North America. For thousands of years, long before European ships ever appeared on the horizon, Native American cultures around the Great Lakes were creating a metalworking tradition entirely their own. They worked with pure native copper, a soft metal found in lumps on the ground or extracted from surface mines, but their process was a complete inversion of what we think of as traditional metallurgy. They did not smelt ore in fiery furnaces, nor did they mix alloys to strengthen the metal. Instead, they used a method of pure physical manipulation, cold hammering the copper into shape. This was not a simple process of beating a soft metal. The copper, in its pure state, is ductile but quickly becomes brittle and hard when hammered, a phenomenon called work hardening. If you continue to hammer it, it will simply crack and shatter. The ancient artisans solved this with a brilliant, repetitive technique. They would hammer the copper until it became too hard and brittle. Then they would place it in the embers of a fire, heating it to a specific, dull red glow. This process, called annealing, relieves the internal stresses in the metal, making it soft and malleable once again. Then the hammering would resume. Imagine the patience required. A single tool could require hundreds of cycles of precise hammering and careful heating, all controlled by sight and feel, to slowly coax a lump of raw copper into a perfectly balanced spear point or a delicate ornamental bead. Modern metalsmiths attempting to replicate these objects using only stones for hammers and an open fire for annealing have found the process to be agonizingly slow and difficult. They can produce a rough approximation, but their objects often lack the refined symmetry, the consistent thickness, and the flawless, uncracked edges of the ancient originals. The true secret seems to lie in a tactile knowledge we can no longer access, an innate understanding of exactly how much to hammer before the metal was on the verge of failure, and exactly how long to heat it to restore its workability without melting or oxidizing it. This was a technology built not on fire and chemistry, but on rhythm, patience, and an intimate conversation between the artisan and the metal. It stands as a powerful, independent discovery of sophisticated material science, a path to working metal that the rest of the world never took. That same sophisticated understanding of materials was applied to the most delicate of tasks, the human body. In the shadow of Mount Vesuvius, preserved by the very disaster that destroyed it, lies evidence of Roman medical genius that feels unnervingly modern. The surgical instruments unearthed from Pompeii and other sites are not crude relics. They are masterpieces of functional design, forged in bronze and iron with a clarity of purpose that would fit seamlessly into a sterilized tray of a modern operating room. There are bone forceps with fine, interlocking teeth for a secure grip, scalpels with replaceable steel blades, and complex devices like the vaginal speculum, a screw-operated tool that looks almost identical to its contemporary counterpart. These were not one-off creations for the wealthy elite. They were standardized, mass-produced tools for a professional medical class, designed with an ergonomic understanding that prioritized the surgeon's control and the patient's outcome. Modern blacksmiths attempting to recreate these instruments using only Roman-era forges, hammers, and files have found the task humbling. The challenge is not in the metal itself, but in the precision. To craft the perfectly aligned screws of a speculum, the delicate hinges of a forceps, or the balanced weight of a scalpel requires a level of hand-forged accuracy that borders on artistry. Contemporary surgeons who have handled exact replicas often express astonishment. The tools are not just similar in appearance, they are functionally brilliant. Their balance and sharpness a testament to an empirical knowledge of surgery that was far more advanced than we once believed. This was not merely craftsmanship, it was a systematic approach to medicine, a technological peak in surgical care that would be lost for over 1,000 years, not being consistently matched again until the 19th century. How did a civilization without germ theory or microscopic imaging develop such an intuitive, perfect grasp of the instruments needed to heal? The answer lies not in a single secret, but in a culture that valued pragmatic engineering in every aspect of life, from the roads that crossed their empire to the delicate tools that crossed a patient's skin. Our journey through these unbreakable inventions ends where it began, with the mystery of steel. Long before the famed blades of Damascus, there was Wootz, the legendary steel forged in the crucibles of ancient India. As early as 300 years before the Common Era, Indian metalworkers perfected a process that created a material of mythic quality. They started with a specific iron ore, rich in trace elements, and sealed it inside a clay pot with precise amounts of carbon-rich wood and leaves. This sealed crucible was then heated in a charcoal furnace for hours, even days, at a carefully controlled temperature. The result was not just a lump of steel, but a high-carbon ingot with a swirling, crystalline pattern already locked within its heart. This was the raw Wootz, the precursor to the legendary Damascus blades. The magic was in the bands of cementite, a hard, carbon-rich mineral that formed in swirling layers within a softer, more flexible steel matrix. This unique internal structure is what gave finished weapons their legendary combination of a razor-sharp edge and a spring-like resilience. Modern metallurgists have analyzed these ancient ingots with every tool at their disposal. They know the chemical composition down to the atomic level. They have built replica furnaces and followed the historical accounts as closely as possible. Yet the steel they produce is almost always a disappointment. It might be hard, but it is brittle, shattering under stress, or it might be flexible, but it cannot hold an edge. The subtle, perfect balance of the original Wootz consistently eludes them. The failure lies in the nuances, the intangible art that accompanied the science. It was the specific rhythm of the heating and cooling cycles, a dance of temperature that the master smiths felt in their bones. It was the precise hammering and folding at just the right temperature to draw out the beautiful, watery patterns without destroying the delicate crystalline structure. This was not a recipe that could be written down. It was a living skill, passed from teacher to apprentice over generations. The loss of this knowledge was one of the great setbacks in the history of technology. For centuries, this ancient Indian steel remained superior to anything produced in Europe, a shining example of a pinnacle reached and then forgotten. It stands as our final, powerful reminder that true advancement is not always a straight line. Sometimes the highest peaks are scaled only to be lost in the clouds of time, leaving us to gaze upward, wondering how they were ever reached at all. These unbreakable artifacts present a profound challenge to our modern sense of progress. We have dissected them with electron microscopes and modeled them with supercomputers, yet the gap between our analysis and their replication remains stubbornly wide. Why does 21st century engineering, with all its computational power and material science, consistently fall short when trying to rebuild what ancient hands crafted? The obstacles are not merely a matter of missing blueprints. Modern engineers grapple with the loss of specific material sources, the very ores, clays, and volcanic ashes that were integral to the original formulas. The iron ore for Damascus Steel came from mines long since exhausted, its unique trace elements impossible to find in the same combination today. Even if we had the exact recipe for Roman concrete, the volcanic ash from Pozzuoli has a chemical signature that cannot be perfectly duplicated. We are trying to bake a cake with ingredients that no longer exist. Compounding this is the complete absence of detailed technical records. The builders of the pyramids, the forgers of Wootz steel, and the chemists of Greek fire did not leave behind instruction manuals. Their knowledge was a living tradition, passed from master to apprentice through a lifetime of shared practice. This was not information that could be written down in a book. It was a form of tactile intelligence, a feel for the material that was learned by doing, not by reading. You cannot encode the exact pressure of a hammer strike or the precise color of molten bronze at the perfect pouring temperature into a text. This generational, practical knowledge vanishes when the chain is broken, and archaeology can only unearth the final product, not the countless hours of failure and refinement that led to its creation. Attempting to work without modern power tools reveals another layer of the mystery. We can theorize how the Inca shaped 100-ton stones with stone hammers, but when modern stonemasons try it, the process is agonizingly slow and the results are visibly crude. Our modern engineering mindset is built on precision, on machines that can cut to a tolerance of 1/1000th of an inch. The ancient approach was different. It was about achieving perfection through an intimate, almost spiritual connection with the material, a patience that allowed for years of gradual refinement. This suggests that these civilizations cultivated a different kind of problem-solving intelligence, one that modern engineering education, with its focus on standardized processes and digital modeling, does not typically encompass. We are trying to solve their puzzles with our tools, and the pieces do not quite fit. The persistence of these mysteries reveals a humbling truth. Our inability to replicate these marvels speaks not to their primitiveness, but to the limitations of our own perspective, forcing us to question if we have, in our quest for control and efficiency, lost a deeper way of knowing the physical world. Our journey through these 21 unbreakable inventions reveals a quiet but profound truth about human ingenuity. From concrete that heals its own wounds to machines that map the cosmos, these marvels were not flukes. They represent a deep, cultivated intelligence, a mastery of materials and mathematics that modern science can analyze but cannot resurrect. This persistence of mystery should serve as a humbling lesson for our own age. It reminds us that technological progress is not a straight, ever-ascending line. Civilizations can reach breathtaking heights, only to have that knowledge vanish into the sands of time, leaving behind silent, perfect monuments as their only testament. These achievements force us to reconsider our most basic assumptions about history. We often view the past as a simpler, more primitive prologue to our own technological era. Yet the evidence laid out by these objects tells a different story, one of sophisticated capability that rivals and sometimes surpasses our own in its elegant efficiency. This perspective is not just about rewriting history books, it is a vital source of inspiration for our future. Contemporary engineers and scientists are increasingly looking backward, studying the self-healing properties of Roman concrete to design more sustainable infrastructure, or examining the perfect seismic resilience of Inca walls to build safer cities in earthquake zones. The past holds a treasure trove of proven, time-tested solutions that were born from a harmonious relationship with the natural world. As we continue to probe these enduring mysteries, we do more than just uncover the secrets of ancient civilizations. We embark on a quest to rediscover lost forms of wisdom, sustainable and efficient technologies that could offer profound benefits to our modern world. The silent, unbreakable artifacts left behind by our ancestors are not merely relics. They are a challenge and an invitation, a reminder that human creativity and problem-solving know no chronological boundaries. They urge us to keep exploring, to keep questioning, and to remain open to the possibility that some of our most innovative future solutions are waiting to be rediscovered in the distant past.